Good evening. This is Pastor Greg Jackson, and I am trying a direct stream to the blog. And this is a way of trying out how this works so that we can have the video of the service right in the program on Ichabod the Glory Has Departed.blogspot.com. So for the trial, I'm going to compare two kinds of text references, that is, the Greek New Testament text. It's a very interesting thing to study, and it does not mean that people have to know Greek to find out about it. There are two basic approaches. One is exemplified by Theodore Letis, who was a Lutheran pastor who studied under a Calvinist who's quite the highly trained expert, and that was Edward Freer Hills. He wrote the KJV Defendant. And the ecclesiastical text means this is the Greek text that the church preserved. Now, in comparison or in contrast, there are the people who argue against that. They do not like the majority text, also called the ecclesiastical text, Byzantine text, traditional text. It's interesting that the plain old Greek New Testament that everybody used in the Protestant church until 1880 or so had so many names. But it means thousands and thousands of written witnesses agreed almost 100% on the text of the New Testament. We cannot say 100% because nothing written by man is perfect. People try to get Bibles perfect. People try to get their own books perfect. But the fact is, copying, typing, putting in type, all those things lead to errors. But the difference is between, say, the majority text being in almost complete agreement and saying the two favorite codices, Sinaiticus and Vaticanus, disagree 40% of the time. Now, for some reason, all the agreement is something bad in the majority text. But with all that disagreement, Vaticanus and Sinaiticus are the best. Can anybody improve on that lack of logic? It makes no sense. So this is what we have today throughout academic life. Kurt and Barbara Allen, this is the text of the New Testament. He started his own institute, and later in life, when his first wife died, his second wife was already part of the institute, I believe, and she took over when Kurt Allen died. And this is a continuation of this line of text critics, as they say, which start with Tischendorf supposedly discovering Sinaiticus and promoting that like it was the end of the world. Vaticanus, the same thing. Both of them dubious, to say the least. That moved on to Westcott Hort embracing Sinaiticus and Vaticanus and saying all these verses in the New Testament, they don't need to be there. And they erased them. And they erased phrases. And that is considered the highest and the best. Well, of course, Westcott and Hort had to be improved upon. So Nestle did his part and made lots and lots of changes. And Kurt Allen worked under Nestle, and he continued to make changes. And then everything got united under the United Bible Society because there were, at that time, say, two basic Greek New Testaments in the critical side. Critical meaning we don't believe it. And now they pretty much settled on what Kurt Allen did with his institute, and they call that, according to Kurt, the late Kurt Allen, the standard text. Isn't that clever? I think that's clever. See, they already had the traditional text in the majority Byzantine ecclesiastical text. So what kind of a title can you find to make it at least as good? The traditional text turns into the standard text, and people don't know. There's a whole lot of difference in that. And so part of this was sparked by the fact that I got my second volume of the commentary on the Gospel of Mark from the Missouri Synod, and it is a catastrophe. I haven't counted up all the pages, but the second half alone is 1,200 pages in fine print. And that is based upon Vaticanus, not the majority text. And when the author, Velt, talks about why that should be true, he takes another person from the same school of thought, Bruce Metzger, and says he agrees. Well, of course. People that have been traveling the same route for 50 years, they don't exactly provide an alternative view, do they? And that's the strange thing about this. However, many people agree. Many people understand that the King James Bible with the majority text is, number one, the standard English text. It does not change every year, like all the modern versions, including modern KJVs. Doesn't change. The traditional one has had some slight edits, but when those edits are done, they don't keep on changing it until it's down to the level of the Message or the Cotton Patch Bible. So that's one thing. It's the English is standard and the majority text is standard. Does that make a difference? I've mentioned before my Westcott Hort Greek New Testament, which was the first one I ever owned. Very first verse of Mark, the gospel of Jesus Christ. That's what it says. That sounds good, doesn't it? If you don't open the King James, because they erased, without comment, the Son of God. Gospel of Mark starts out, the gospel of Jesus Christ, the Son of God. And I think that's an important erasure. And there are many like that. 1 Timothy 3:16 has another one just like that. The modernists take away the word God and turn it into who. Very few witnesses have who. And the fact is that that word can be corrupted by handling. So it's not shocking that that happened by accident, nor is it shocking that it happened if people did not want Jesus to be God. But all the modernists, no, not all the modernists, most of the modern New Testaments have who or which and not God. Just take a look at that. You can look up this on Bible Gateway and look at 1 Timothy 3:16 and see and say, I want all the translations of that verse in English. And it'll give you all the alternatives, and you'll see that a lot of the modernist ones have eliminated God. And isn't that the whole point in making a confession or a hymn or a poem? That verse is probably all three. To teach the truth about Christ being the Son of God and all that he accomplished in a few words. Lenski said 6 errors, justified in the Spirit, raised from the dead. So take a look at that and see if you like it without God, as the modernists do, or with God, as the majority text does. I'll just wrap this up for today and see if it goes through as we hope, get saved, and then refer to our social media outlets. We have a vast array of them. Facebook, Bethany Lutheran Worship, KJV, TLH, actually Bethany Lutheran Worship, TLH, KJV. I think it's one way or the other. I wrote that out and I should remember, but the idea was to keep it traditional. Got any doubts about our church being traditional? The Lutheran hymnal, King James Version. It also appears on my channel in YouTube and on my page in Facebook. Those happen a little bit after the video has finished. I can't call it tape anymore. After the video is finished, it has to do some cooking and steaming and stirring. And when they're done with that, it gets imported to those social media outlets. I'm working on using more, but that's a good start to have 3 additional backups. Plus, this will be saved on Vimeo as a backup too. God's blessings to you, and let's hope this one works well, because that means I learned my lesson this afternoon with our Lutheran librarian. He helped me out.